Under the hood of the Edge SE, you've got a 2-liter twin-scroll turbocharged EcoBoost 4-cylinder engine. And this one makes 250 horsepower, 275 pound-feet of torque. Now you can obviously get this vehicle in ST trim if you want to, which comes with a completely different powertrain, engine and transmission. And that one puts out a stump-pulling 385 pound-feet of torque. It's obviously a very quick vehicle. This one, I wouldn't call it quick, but this engine mated to the 8-speed automatic transmission. It does feel pretty good. It has very good power for your average commute or just from driving out on the interstate. You know, you've got enough power to do what you need to do here. It's not fast. It's not a rocket ship. It kind of reminds me of the Mini Cooper that my wife bought earlier this summer. It's got plenty of power, you know, but it's not going to be a rocket ship if that's what you're looking for. So we got a leaf down in here, but you can see as far as maintenance goes, you can get to your battery fairly easily there. Air filter is pretty easy to get to, and it is a toolless design, which means you can just pop these clips with your finger and get to your air filter like you should be able to. You know, you can check your oil here very easily. It specs 5W30, which I think is very interesting. You know, a lot of vehicles these days are going to thinner and thinner and thinner oils, which I think is a bad thing, but they recognize that on these, you know, higher heat engines, you know, where you've got a turbocharger, you're building a lot of heat, they recognize that you have to run a better viscosity oil, you know, if you're going to, you know, expect it to hold up over time. But anyway, coolant overflow bottle, easy to get to, wiper fluid. So they've got everything that you need, you know, access to right here where you can get to it, and I appreciate that. When it comes time to change the spark plugs, those will be a piece of cake to do at home if you want to. Looks like you may even be able to get to the belt fairly easily down there, which is unusual for front-wheel drive vehicles. So I guess what I'm kind of getting to is, unlike a lot of your cars these days, Ford has taken the time to put things, you know, where they should put them so that the owner can get to them. You know, a lot of people want to do maintenance and upkeep at home and save a lot of money and have some pride in caring for their own vehicle, and Ford, you know, allows you to do that by putting things where they belong. So I appreciate that about the Edge, and other automakers should take note of this. So as far as the color on this is called Atlas Blue, and this one has the black package. So you can see it has black accents, black wheels, and so forth. So it's a pretty good looking color. Honestly, this is probably the best color you can get on this vehicle. And you know, this new generation of Edge, obviously they molded it a little bit more, kind of gave it some more curves and a little more of a rounded appearance, and it looks a lot better. One of my big complaints with a previous generation Ford Edge was just how ugly it was. That was just an incredibly ugly vehicle. It looked 15 years old the day they released it, and the interior was just as bad, just a hideous looking vehicle. But this new generation, they have sculpted it a little nicer, and it does definitely look a little better. Now this is an SE version, like I said, but it comes with a lot of standard things like LED projector headlights, which by the way work really good. We've got a thunderstorm that just passed a little while ago, so it got pretty dark on me when I was driving home. And you know, out on the road, these things work really good, the headlights, and they have a really sharp cutoff to them. So you're not going to have to worry about blinding oncoming traffic or anything like that, despite the fact that they are LED. So again, that's pretty nice. This is a basic model, but it does have some pretty nice features. And I want to take you inside and show you a few of those things now. When you walk up here, you'll notice that you have what Chrysler always calls proximity entry. To be honest, I'm not sure what Ford's language for that is, but the bottom line is you don't have to go digging for your key. You know, if you've got the key in your pocket or your purse, you walk up and touch the handle and you can get into the vehicle. So obviously you're going to have cloth seats in the SE version. You're going to have a urethane steering wheel, no leather wrap on that. You do have push button start. So let's go ahead and start the vehicle up. So, like I was saying, one of my complaints about the previous generation of the Edge was just how ugly it was outside and inside. The exterior on this newer generation is much better. The interior is a little better. You've still got a lot of black plastic in here, just a sea of black plastic everywhere, and you still have this gauge cluster design that I hate. I just can't stand how you've got the digital to read out over here, and then one analog speedometer in the middle. I don't know why, but that just really bugs me. It's just, I don't like it. It doesn't seem to, flow very well. You end up having two completely separate controls. This one obviously controls stuff over here, and this one controls stuff over there. It takes longer to get used to it if you've never driven one of these vehicles before. I don't like the way it looks. I'm just not a fan. And I know that's really subjective, but I'm personally just not a fan of that. So I don't like that they kept that. I wish they should have either gone to a fully digital display here or just do some more analog. The way it's just chopped up here, I just don't like it, and it's ugly. But the rest of the vehicle, it is a little bit nicer than it used to be. You can see that even on the SE trim, you get this huge tablet style infotainment screen now. You do have some manual climate controls, so that's good. You can control the volume for your radio here and tuner, but you also have the ability to, like for example, here's your defrost button right here. So you can control a little bit of stuff, in an analog, physical button style down there. But by and large, a lot of your controls are going to be done through the touchscreen now. And so it's just one of those things you're going to have to get used to. However, I will say that the touchscreen is very responsive, and the size of it makes it easy for anybody to see, and you can figure this out pretty easily. So I'm not going to really go over a lot of this, but more so I just wanted to kind of show you what you're getting if you get the lower end trim level in this vehicle, because a lot of the reviews out there are the higher trims. So as far as your transmission controls go, you've got a dial here. Kind of reminds you of a Ram pickup truck, doesn't it? But this is becoming more popular to do this kind of thing. Just totally electronic controls of your transmission now. It frees up space. That's why they do it. For one thing, it frees up a lot of space, on the column up there, or also in the console. You don't have a shifter that you have to worry about. You can just put a dial in here. Some vehicles have even gone to buttons these days. But anyway, it's an 8-speed automatic. All of these Edges will have an 8-speed automatic, except for the ST version. If you go on up to the ST, you're going to get a 7-speed automatic, which also has completely different transmission ratios in it as well. So the ST is a totally different drivetrain altogether. But all of the other Edges are going to have the same 8-speed automatic controlled through here. You have a button here to go to sport mode. You got your electronic parking brake and a button here to turn off the automatic start-stop feature. So a couple of cup holders, a very cavernous cubby hole. Look how far back that goes. You can lose a cell phone back in there. A couple of USB ports. So again, it's got the stuff you need and nothing you don't up here. And I gotta say, you can see where my knee sits. I'm pretty comfortable in here. I'm about 6'3", just for reference. And, if I'm cruising down the road with a cruise control on, this is where my knee is gonna rest. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel uncomfortable. My knee's not resting against a shifter or anything like that, like has been the case in some vehicles. Over here you do have some soft materials on the door. So, and then like when your foot's on the accelerator pedal, you got plenty of knee room there too. So it's a comfortable vehicle. You do have a dead pedal over here to rest your foot on as well. Even for a tall guy, it's a comfortable vehicle. I don't feel cramped in it. I don't feel tight in it. I don't feel like I need more space. It's working out pretty good. So what is it like to drive the Edge SE all-wheel drive? By the way, all-wheel drive is the only way that you can get this vehicle. They don't offer it in just front-wheel drive only. Well, here's what I would say about it. The steering, first of all, the steering is very touchy. All right, it's almost like the ratio is almost too fast. You know, every little movement in the steering wheel results in a lot of movement with the vehicle. And if you're racing, I guess, out on a road course, that might be a good thing. But just for daily driving, it's not really desirable. I don't really like it. It would take a lot of getting used to. It's just too touchy. I don't know how else to, it's almost like it's over boosted, you know. I really think they should tweak the steering ratio and just the steering in general on this vehicle. The brake pedal, very touchy. You know, you just barely touch the brake pedal and it almost feels like it's locking up on you. It'll shake you. So it's something you really have to get used to. Now the throttle feels pretty good. The EcoBoost engine makes pretty linear power. They've got that dialed in a lot better than the previous generations. And the transmission, the 8-speed automatic transmission shifts pretty well in here too. I don't have any problems with the engine or the transmission. Seems like it's dialed in pretty well. It shifts when it needs to shift. It's not clunky. It doesn't seem like it lags behind when it needs to start downshifting. It downshifts when it needs to, it upshifts when it needs to, and it drives pretty well in terms of acceleration and all of that. It's just the braking and the steering is just, man, I think they need to go back to the chalkboard and work on that a little bit. I don't really like it at all. The other thing, ride quality is pretty good in this vehicle. It soaks up railroad tracks and bumps in the road and things. It soaks it up pretty well. It doesn't translate harshness into the seat or into the steering wheel. It feels pretty good. So I think they've done a pretty good job on ride quality. Other than that, I don't really have a lot of complaints about the driving experience. You know, the steering and the braking is just my only complaint really in the short time that I've been in this vehicle. If they would just dial those things in a little better, I think they'd have a pretty nice vehicle in their hands. Fuel economy is great. The power, like I said, is adequate. It's not a rocket ship. It's not fast, but it is adequate power. You can pass someone if you need to. You can merge onto the interstate if you need to. You're not going to be lacking for power, so I guess that's a good thing. So all in all, it would make a pretty good vehicle for someone, I think, who just wants to commute back and forth to work or maybe go to the grocery store and that's all you use your vehicle for. I think it would be pretty good for that. Honestly, if I was shopping in this category, this would not be my pick. I just think that there's too many shortcomings, you know, with some pretty big things like the steering and the braking, but also just the overall design of the vehicle. And, you know, I don't know. I just feel like that there's probably a couple of vehicles in this segment that are a little better overall. But you can't go wrong here, though. It's not a bad vehicle by any means. And, you know, if you're shopping in this segment, you know, it's definitely worth a look at least. Now, these vehicles being an SE model, it's going to be priced a little bit lower, obviously, than some of the other stuff that's out there in this segment. You know, this vehicle specifically was less money, several $1,000s less money than the Mini Cooper Countryman that my wife just bought earlier this summer. So the way things are these days, it's a pretty good value, I guess, if you get the SE, because you're getting standard safety features, you're getting standard all-wheel drive, you're getting a turbo engine standard, you know, so they do bring some stuff to the table for that base price that, you know, is appealing, I guess. But, I mean, I just think that overall, you could probably find a little bit nicer vehicle in this segment if you did some shopping around. But, you know, again, some of that is very subjective. All right, so if I sit behind myself in the second row, you can see that I have plenty of knee room here. There's probably an inch or two of knee room there. I've got plenty of headroom. And again, I'm a fairly tall guy, so I've got the driver's seat put up there where it would be if I was driving. And then I can sit behind myself pretty comfortably. Now, like I was saying a minute ago, one of my big complaints about the previous generation Edge was the second row seating. It was just absolutely horrible, very uncomfortable. That vehicle, I just don't get it, man. They missed so many marks with that previous gen Edge. It was just ridiculous. I hated those cars. But this one is an improvement. It's still not great, but it's definitely an improvement, and I can tell that they've put some time into trying to fix a few things back here that needed to be fixed. And even in the SE, you also get some air conditioning ventilation back here, and you've got USB down there. So the people or the kids who are sitting back here can charge devices and have a little bit of cool air blowing on them in the middle of summer. You do have some pockets for storage in the backs of both of the seats, so that's good. You've got some audio speakers here in the doors, so it should sound pretty good back here. Overhead lighting. So again, you got the stuff you need in the back seat and nothing that you don't. So the fuel door is just pressed to open. You don't have to do anything inside the car, which I really appreciate. We've had some vehicles before where you have to go in there and find a button to press so that you can put gas in the car, which is just idiotic in my opinion. So I'm glad that you can just walk up to this one and open it up by hand. You have Ford's easy fuel system, so there's no cap on here to fool with. So everything is real simple. You just walk up to it, click, you're ready to put gas in. I mean, it's the little things sometimes, you know. Now, this is the reason why people buy utility vehicles right here, the business end of the vehicle. So this is a pretty cavernous space. You've got a lot of room here. Obviously you can fold these second row seat backs down so that you have an even longer load floor, but look at how much space you've got here. I mean, it is a pretty big space, and you've got 12-volt power back here. You've got storage cubbies all over the place. Underneath here, obviously, you have a spare tire, and that is probably for putting fluids into the vehicle. Some kind of an electronic module up there. But look at these little storage areas you've got back here. So you could put some things in here as well, you know, emergency kit or first aid kit, or, you know, whatever. If you were going shopping at the mall and you just had a couple of small bags, you could put them in here and keep them out of sight. So if it's out in the parking lot, people can't just look in the back window and see something to steal. So, you know, again, it's a pretty well-designed area back here. And it's certainly very useful. You got a couple of tie-down points here as well. So it's very functional, very useful, you know, and I kind of appreciate that about it. And when it comes time to close it, look, you've got an actual handle here to grab onto. You don't have to put your dirty hands all over your paint and all that stuff. Or if your hands are clean and the vehicle's dirty, same difference. On this vehicle, you actually have a handle to grab onto, which is very nice. So all in all, I think the newer generation Ford Edge is, like I said, a big improvement. That's the best way that I can describe it. I've said this over and over again. I hated the prior generation. It was ugly. It was uncomfortable. It didn't do anything for me at all. But this one is a massive improvement in exterior appearance, interior appearance. They've added some additional functionality into it. They've added some additional safety into it. They've added some power and fuel economy into it. So they have made some meaningful changes on the Ford Edge, and I appreciate when an automaker, you know, takes a vehicle that is not so great and they actually work on it and head in the right direction with it. You know, so many times we see automakers just continue to do the same stuff with each generation. They might make it look a little different, but the vehicle itself doesn't really improve over time. That's not the case here. Ford has really made some improvements on the Edge. It's a much nicer looking vehicle, especially on the exterior. And like I said, it's got some pretty awesome features. I really like this black package. I think it looks pretty modern, and it's just got a sportier look to it this way. Not to mention there's some function here too, because black wheels are easier to clean. You can just wipe them down, and in the event that they ever got a little bit of curb rash on them or something, you could, in theory, paint them yourself. If you knew what you were doing, you could sand down an area and kind of tape it off, put some gloss black paint on there, a little bit of clear over it, and you'd probably never know that they got damaged. So there's some functionality to black wheels as well. But anyway, overall, I think this is a pretty nice vehicle. Again, there may be some slightly better vehicles overall in this segment, but you can't go wrong with this one. You know, if you're just looking for a car with all-wheel drive and a pretty good amount of value, I think that the Ford Edge would be a pretty good choice. So all in all, it is what it is, I guess, but kudos to Ford for at least making some good improvements. So if you have any questions about the Ford Edge SE all-wheel drive, you can drop them below. But I guess for now, we've pretty much covered what we need to cover with this vehicle. Thanks for watching, as always, and we will talk to you later.